In this new episode of Fresh Cuts, we are diving into the newest entry in the Evil Dead franchise, Evil Dead Rise. Is Mommy okay? Let's go find out. What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Fresh Cuts, where we dive into the newest releases in theaters or on your favorite streaming services. Today, we are sitting down to talk about the newest entry in the Evil Dead franchise, 2023's Evil Dead Rise. I am Brett Parker, and yeah, just me today. We're back, though. We're back. We haven't done one of these since Cocaine Bear, but we're back to talk about Evil Dead Rise because I went and saw it yesterday, and I really wanted to talk about it. Wasn't really planning on doing this, but I said, screw it. I know everybody else is doing it, and I'm not going to let their opinions on the movies sway my opinion because I went in, and here is what happened. Now, if you're new to Fresh Cuts, we go into this spoiler-free, and then once we, run out of things to talk about spoiler-free, we're going to dive into spoilers. This isn't going to be a very long video. I'm not going to go too into the beats of the entire story of this movie. It's a new release. That's just not what we do here on Fresh Cuts, so this is what we're going to do. What is Evil Dead Rise to me? What is the Evil Dead franchise to me? Let's start out with that, okay? I came into this franchise way late. I actually dove into it last year. Listen, I had watched a lot of horror movies as a kid, but unfortunately, the Evil Dead franchise just wasn't on my radar. It wasn't something that I had looked into watching, and to be honest, I really had no one to tell me to watch, this franchise. And I was huge into Freddy, huge into Chucky, huge into Jason, Michael Myers, like those core horror, icons, if you want to call them, because you had people from the outside kind of telling you. No, I had no one telling me about Evil Dead. So when I dove into it last year, I was hooked. Jumping into the Evil Dead from 1982 or 1981, whatever you want to consider it, whenever it was made over a span of like 3 years. So 1982. I loved it. I loved how it felt its age, it felt its budget, but it just was so much fun to watch. Young Bruce Campbell doing his thing, and just the early effects with like this little to no budget. And then, jumping to Evil Dead 2, which is taking that core story and redoing it again, but kind of adding a little bit of a comedy beat to it and making it, it's so much fun. And then Army of Darkness kind of just going off the rails and doing its crazy thing. And then we kind of get a reset in 2013 with Evil Dead, which, watching it just recently, I think I literally had just watched the 2013 Evil Dead shortly before seeing Evil Dead Rise, and holy shit, this is not just hey, we're going to remake Evil Dead. No, they completely make it a horror movie. Like there are terrifying moments. It's gory as hell. Jane Levy as the lead. I loved her, the crazy arc she goes throughout the entire movie. The movie is bonkers. We're going to get to 20. Now we're here. We're at Evil Dead Rise. You got your core guys back. You got Sam Raimi coming back to produce. You got Rob Talbot, or Talpert. Names. He comes back. He's one of the original creators of Evil Dead. You have Bruce Campbell as a producer. You have this guy, Lee Cronin, who only really has one film under his belt. And that would be, let me look it up real quick, Hole in the Ground. He did some short films from 2004 to 2013, but he only has one other film before doing Evil Dead Rise. So clearly that movie had to have been pretty good. I have not seen it, not going to lie to you. But I think it's always so much fun to see, like, newer directors coming in and kind of putting their feel and their taste into an established franchise such as Evil Dead. Fede Alvarez, he wasn't a huge director when he was given to do the Evil Dead remake. So, and we saw how successful that was. And so, giving somebody who's kind of new to the field something so big, it's very exciting. And to be honest, he did a great job. I think this movie has its frights, it has its gore, it has those uncomfortable moments. This movie possibly has one of the greatest opening title cards I've ever seen in a movie, with just sheer terror, and just how it's just displayed on the screen, and you're just like, thank God I saw this in a theater and I didn't, wait to see it at home. This movie, you get through it, and as somebody who doesn't have the history with Evil Dead, as I know a lot of people who have already done reviews on this, a lot of my friends that have done reviews on this, who have that long history with this franchise, as somebody who's new and who's just had so much fun with it, I had a blast with this movie. This movie was, yes, there are issues with it, and we'll talk about that a little bit more. But this movie, I went in there and I was just kind of tense the entire time, just watching it, just certain things happening, and the fact that it is so claustrophobic, being in this apartment building for the entirety of the movie. Now, speaking of that, I feel maybe it would have been a little bit of a better situation if we got to explore the high rise a little bit more, because we're kind of stuck on one floor or in the apartment, which I liked it, but I see the kind of the negative, you know, thoughts from people when they're talking about, oh well, you have this setting of this skyrise, but you're only in this one spot. I get it, I totally get it, but I enjoyed the claustrophobia you get from watching this, the uncomfortable feelings, the fact that they just don't give a shit about who gets turned in this movie. And the lead actress, Alyssa Sutherland, she is phenomenal. She was born to play a role like this. They brought her in. This is just my hypothetical casting. Okay, they brought her in to cast her in this movie. She does her audition. They're like, "You're great. You're a great. I can't wait to see you on screen." But as can you just smile for me? And she gives that smile, and everybody's like, oh boy, we can't wait to put the Deadite makeup on you, because she is so terrifying. Just the way she looks. I know there's been some, discourse on the way the Deadites look, and I get it. I really love the original looks of the Deadites in the original trilogy, and I know they were trying to. It's trying not to look as, I don't want to say cheesy, because I don't think the effects in the original look cheesy. I just think it might just look of the time, but I totally understand. But we also got Ash versus Evil Dead for 3 seasons where they use that original makeup look, and I think it fit for that. I like the look of the Deadites, but I understand if people just don't give it. Like, it doesn't really look like one. But yeah, she's terrifying. The way that she moves, the way that she moves her face, the way that, just her line delivery is so good. Now let's go through some of the other cast members here. We have Lily Sullivan, who was kind of our other lead. Alyssa Sutherland is our like lead Deadite. She plays Ellie. You have Lily Sullivan, who plays her sister Beth. You have Morgan Davies, who plays Danny. These are the kids. You have Gabrielle Eccles, who plays Bridget, and then you have a newcomer, Nell Fisher, who plays Cassie, and she's great. As that's the thing, is you're always kind of weary about young actors coming in. I don't think she's less than 10 years old, her first big role, and she delivers lines better than some of the other characters, and that's pretty phenomenal to think about. And yeah, the makeup effects great. The music is just eerie. It's not like in your face unless something is going on, and then you're just kind of, it's just being pumped into just your soul and just sucking it out. And yeah, this movie is, I literally had fun from beginning to end. I remember once the movie ends and I'm kind of, we didn't even immediately get up from the theater. We literally just sat in our seats and we're just kind of like, it was me, my brother, and my best friend. We're just sitting there, just looking at each other like, holy shit. Like, I can't wait to watch that again because I just want to see if I see different things. I want to see some of these performances again. And to be honest, I just want to see that title card again because that title card is by far the greatest. I don't even want to put a clip of it in here. I want people to experience that title card and just how that opening is because it's a fantastic opening to the movie. I will not complain about that. We do get the way the movie opens. It links to what the main story, but it doesn't in a way. It's very unique. I like it. I like that it kind of gives us like a, oh, are we going back to the woods? Nah, 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 we're not. But we do have something we want to tease you with. And but yeah, the I think some of my negatives would be like the CG work is a little weird. It's a little wonky in places. There are some scenes that happen that just kind of you're just like, ooh, I either they could have just gotten rid of that scene or just don't use CGI or try to do something practical. And I think that's what's so great about the Evil Dead franchise is that they use a lot of practical effects. I mean, back when they were making the original trilogy, practical effects was all you could really do. You do that claymation, stop motion, stuff like that. CG was new, at least when Army of Darkness came out. CG was fairly new, and I don't think they had the budget to really do anything with it. And even in the 2013 remake, there wasn't really a lot of CG. You had, there was little spritz here and there, but most of it was practical. So the fact that they use, I think this was probably the most that CG has ever been used in an Evil Dead movie, and I don't think. I think there were, like I said, there was a couple scenes that really kind of throw you off that are just like, okay, I feel like you could have done without that. But for the most part, I think it looked pretty good. And yeah, that's really all I can talk about spoiler free. I really like again, I really enjoyed this movie. And as it did have its problems, it's one of those things that it just solidifies the fact that I think the Evil Dead franchise is one of the most solid franchises, not just in horror, but I just think in cinema, period. Like the fact that they've done 5 movies now, they've done 3 seasons of a very successful show, which I have not watched all of Ash vs. Evil Dead, but I've seen bits and pieces of it. And even though I feel this is is probably I don't want, I enjoy watching this more than some of the other ones, but I can see where the disdain is compared to the rest of the franchise. I mean, Evil Dead 1 and 2, those are probably those are the 2 top dogs. I don't think anything is ever gonna be able to pass those. I have a personal love for the Evil Dead, the original Evil Dead. I actually like it more than Evil Dead 2, even though I know Evil Dead 2 is usually the one everyone picks to be their favorite, but I love the Evil Dead. And, I think but it's one of those things where it's like, yeah, this could be the worst, in quotations, worst of the franchise, but it's still a fantastic movie. Like I had so much fun with it. And I mean, listen, like I said, I've listened to a lot of podcasts that have talked about this movie because we're a couple of weeks out from its release. People have already, like everyone on the internet has already talked about this movie, and I'm a little late to the party. I'm not gonna let that sway my opinion of it, but I understand where people are coming from when there's certain aspects that they don't like. I totally get that. But this is what I think of the movie, and come after me if you want. I really like this movie. I think it's a lot of fun. And I can't. It's one. And when you're done watching a movie, and immediately you're just like, I can't wait to watch that again. You did something right. And maybe I'm just a sucker. Maybe I'm just I'm easy to please, and you're not wrong. I am very easy to please. I like a lot of movies that a lot of people don't like, and I'm very easily entertained. So, hey, it is what it is. But we are going to hop into some spoilers. I do want to talk a little bit some minor spoiler stuff. I'm not going to go like I said, I'm not going to go beat for beat through the entire story. It's kind of it's not the most intricate story. It's not like I have to really break into certain things. But we're going to go into spoilers. So if you don't want to be spoilered. If you don't want to be spoilered, I'm going to keep that in. Join me. That doesn't make any sense. If you don't want to be spoiled, leave. Come back when you've seen the movie, and then come back when you've finally seen it. And then if you've already seen the movie, join me on my thoughts. Okay? Boy, I was hoping not to have to edit this, but I'm gonna have to. All right, here we go. So I love the opening of this movie. I love the fact that we get to see kind of we're seeing the similar thing. We're at a cabin. It's definitely not the same cabin, and we're seeing some different characters that we really didn't see in the trailer. We did see the scene with the floating girl, who ends up being the one who's possessed by the Deadite. And to be honest, I thought that scene was fucking wild. There is some shoddy visual effects, like a dude gets his head cut off, and his head's like on the thing, and it was like moving his lips around. It looked a little janky, but it didn't throw me off too much. This girl gets scalped. It's wild, but yeah, I think the most it's not even the violence that got me in that opening scene. I think it's so the girl is, she's not feeling so well because of the fact that she's possessed, and her friend comes in to see if she's okay, and she's reading her a book, and the girl who is possessed is able to read from that book without actually seeing it. So that's when you kind of notice, oh shit, something bad has happened. I mean, you kind of already get the idea, but something bad is going to happen. And then chaos ensues, and she wreaks havoc, and then we get the awesome scene where she tries to kill herself with there's like a drone, and then she gets in the water, and then that's when we get the beautiful title card. She rises out of the water with her arms spread out, and then Evil Dead Rise kind of rises above the tree line with the blaring just music playing in the background, and you're just like, ah! You're so pumped up. You could literally I wanted to run around the theater. I really did. Then we get to our main story where we meet Beth, and she meets her, and we meet her family. So she works for a band. She meets with her sister, who I guess they don't have like the tightest relationship, and it's just a family affair of craziness as uh, a crazy earthquake hits, which it was weird. It was one of those things where I think this is where some people had problems. It's like, well, did did a demonic spirit cause the earthquake, which then opened up the hole, which then Danny goes down to find the book and the records, or was it just a freak thing that an earthquake hit at that moment, then opening? Like, I think that's where we didn't really get an answer, and I feel like we kind of should have gotten some sort of like, is this just a freak thing? Also, I get it. He's a kid, but he finds this book that's got teeth, and he finds some records, and he's just like, "Well, I'm a kind of a DJ type dude. I'm gonna go upstairs. I'm gonna play these records." And then the fact is, he starts playing them, and so at one point he spins the first one, which kind of tells the whole thing, and then as soon as I listen to that, I go, "I'm good. I'm gonna put these back." But then he continues, and then we get the record that says the chant, which Bruce Campbell actually is a voice on one of these records, which I thought was pretty cool. But yeah, it's just then chaos ensues, and the mother gets possessed, and like I said, Alyssa Sutherland is fantastic in her performance as both Ellie before possessed, and then of course as the Deadite Ellie. And just so many great scenes with her, when she comes back to just everything that she does. Like, I think she really carries this movie in her performance, and it's crazy to see that. Usually in an Evil Dead movie, you're when you're watching it, Ash was the main character pretty much in the first three, and then we had Mia in the remake. I know Mia gets possessed in Evil Dead, but like Ash gets possessed too. But like this is like where you get like this one main character, and she's possessed for the entirety. It's not like a subtle thing where she gets possessed, but then she fights it off. No, she is possessed, and she is a Deadite for the rest of this movie. And I really liked that difference. But it really made it sad too. Even though I think the problem with this movie that I can agree with some people is you really don't get you don't really get a, full introduction into this family. It's kind of just like, here you go. Figure it out. You got to figure out who these people are, and what the relationships are, and it's all kind of thrown at you really fast. And I think I understand the discourse on that, where you're just like, okay, I wish I could have kind of gotten something a little bit more, maybe getting a little bit more time with Ellie before she gets possessed, and go from there. But it is what it is. I really like Lily Sullivan as Beth. I think she is a good final girl, if you want to call her that, since she's not really the only one who survives this movie. But to be honest, Nell Fisher as Cassie, she's like 6, 7, 8, maybe at the most, and she does so well. I think she outperforms the other two child actors in this movie. Who, if I wanted to pick like to be honest, I think they're getting a little bit too much hate. I did like all three of them. The problem was, as I just stated before, you don't really get to know them too well, so it's kind of just quick. Here you go. Here's what they do. Quick, just, and then you don't really get an attachment to them. I felt like I got an attachment to Nell, to Cassie. Sorry, Nell's the actress's name, but I felt like I got attached to her and her, horrifying experience that she'll never get over. The thing she sees in this movie. That girl is growing up terribly. She's just, you can't get over the things you see. The thing that I was stating before, their balls were so big in this movie, where they were like, you know what, something that we've never done before. We're gonna turn children into deadites, and they're gonna do some fucked up things. And I went, okay, sure, hell, let's do this. And I think when you meet Bridget, who is the oldest. She gets possessed, and she she eats glass, and she says some weird lines, like she's talking to Beth, and she's talking, she's got the glass, she's swallowing, and you can see it like poking out of her neck, which is clearly CG, but it actually looked pretty good. And she's like, oh, I don't like having things crawling in my stomach. So it's kind of what's going to help. I was like, oh, okay. All right. And this is when you get the cheese grater scene, which the cheese grater scene I thought was fine. I don't think it was as good as it was being hyped up to be. The trailer really like, bam, cheese grater. And then it happens. You're like, okay, yeah, it made me, it did. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. I literally sat there, and when he puts it, or when Bridget puts it on Beth's leg and just runs it down, I winced a little bit. I was very uncomfortable. And that's what this movie does. It makes you uncomfortable. There are things that happen where you're just like, damn, we can't get back from this. Like I said, this entire family almost gets wiped out. Like, Beth and Cassie are the only two left. 2 children and their mother just turned into deadites, and that's it. And then they end up getting killed at the end of the movie, when they turn into the fucking Rat King from The Last of Us Part 2. Sorry, I spoiled The Last of Us Part 2 for anybody, but there is a creature in that game that looks exactly like what this was. My only issue with their little morphing thing with the Rat King, which is what I'm going to call it now, is that you don't get to see it much. It's kind of in the shadows, and you kind of see like the tops of their heads. So pretty much Ellie, Danny, and Bridget like morph into a thing. It's bizarre. It blew my mind a little bit. And yeah, we get some minor other characters in the hotel, or in the apartment building, that really don't play much into anything. They're just kind of there to be killed. I think that could be a gripe with me. I wish these characters stick around longer, did a little bit more. And I just wish that the high rise was just utilized a little bit more, instead of it being in this one apartment or in this hallway, and then in like one fell swoop. You don't even get like a slowly, like Ellie killing people or Bridget slowly killing people. No, it's literally in one fair swoop. Ellie just wipes out like every other just random side character that I'm not even going to name here, because they weren't even in this movie long enough for you to care. But they all get wiped out. You get some more kid deaths, and you're like, okay, Evil Dead, we're doing this, and we're just going all out. And yeah, I love any the scenes when Ellie is at the peephole, and you get to see a lot of the view from the peephole, and that's where you see a lot of those deaths. And of course, Cassie trying to let her in, and that whole thing. But it just shows Alyssa Sutherland's acting is just so good. Her acting through people was just fantastic, and just her demeanor and the way she looked and the way she crawled around. Even though we heard this quote in the trailer, when it was said in the movie, the whole, mommies with the maggots now, I was like, damn, I already knew this was coming. I already knew exactly when it was going to be said, but it still hit me when she said it. That whole thing of her creeping over that bathtub, and she says that line, and you're just like, all right, you got me. I knew it was coming, but you got me anyways. Just shows how good of a performer she is. I gotta say though, the end of this movie was kind of anticlimactic. We get the crazy elevator scene, which we get the ode to The Shining, where the elevator fills with blood, it crashes to the floor, and then when it crashes, it kind of lets out a big flood of blood. I like that because I'm a big Shining fan. I know The Shining is somehow a very hated movie for some reason by a lot of people, but I digress. But I thought that was fun. Um, the parking garage was fine for a bit, but I thought the ending was kind of lackluster. We didn't really get much of a fight between Beth and the Rat King, or Elle and her kid creation morph thing, whatever you want to call it. We didn't really get a fight. It was kind of just like sneaking around, and then she's got to go back and she's got to go save Cassie because she got grabbed, and you're like, well, oh, okay, I guess we're doing this now. And then they get thrown in a wood chipper, and it was kind of like, I wish there was really more of a fight. And we get the chainsaw shout out. I guess the chainsaw color being what it is matched the color of the car, since we didn't get the Oldsmobile or whatever vehicle it was that Ash drove in the original movies. Okay, that is probably my biggest thing, is the fact that that the end of this movie was kind of just like, eh. But it's one of those things where you look at it where you're like, this is where, I mean, Cassie has seen a lot of shit in this one night. It all takes place probably over a course of hours. And she sees so much. Like, how do you live your life experiencing all this in one night? Like, you just watch your mother, your two siblings, they're just dead. And you just literally help them get pushed into a wood chipper. It's weird. It's crazy, to be honest. And I think that's the impact of it. I think if it was just Beth fighting and we had this really anticlimactic ending, then I think it would have been even less impacting. But I think the fact that like Cassie isn't experiencing all of this, she's like huddled next to a truck with her hands over her ears, and it sucks. This character, it really does. Some other scenes I want to talk about real quick before we get the heck out of here. I love when Ellie figures out how to get into the apartment by going into the vent, because there was a cat up there that one of the other neighbors was talking about earlier. So she goes in there, and then she kind of sneaks up on Beth as Beth is listening to the record, and the whole thing where it's all in like you have like a filter in the back, like you can't see, it's all like fuzzy, and you can just see her kind of crawling out of the vent, and she's crawling on the ceiling down on the wall. And then she stands up and you can see her reflection in the window. And I loved it when she like attacks and Beth falls down, and she disconnects from the record player. So the record's not is spinning, but nothing's the needle broke. And Ellie uses her fingernail as the record player and opens her mouth, and just the record is playing out of her mouth. I really like that scene a lot. Um, just the whole fact of Ellie trying to fight off the deadite, like just trying to fight it. Uh, the fact that she like vomits like 10 gallons of white vomit all over the floor, and then dies. And yeah, it just really cool scenes, really tense scenes. This movie was very tense, and I get the discourse, and like I said, I stated my downs. I really think we could have gotten to know this family just a little bit more. I know you only have a certain amount of time to kind of get, around to meeting some of these characters, but yeah, we could have gotten to know these characters. I did end up liking though Beth and Cassie. I liked, the fact that they survived this. I love Ellie. I love the actress and what she did in this movie. She was phenomenal. The side characters were useless, to be honest. They were just kind of cannon fodder. And I wish they could have explored the high rise just a little bit more. And I really, really wish we could have gotten a more intense ending. Other than the fact that she uses that chainsaw and gets covered in blood, which is really cool. I thought the ending was a little bit lackluster, but overall, I still had a blast with this movie, and I can't wait to see it again. I really can't. I really just want to go through this entire franchise, and hopefully soon. Maybe we're gonna be. Maybe we'll cover the 2013 Evil Dead, since it is celebrating its 10th anniversary. So maybe very, very soon we will sit down and do a full podcast episode on 2013's Evil Dead. And then maybe at some point we'll do this. But yeah, someday we're going to be venturing through this whole franchise. And I'm excited because this franchise is a lot of fun. Like I said, it is good. Every single movie is so much fun to watch. And that's what makes such a great franchise and why it's so fun to see, Sam Raimi doing his thing, being around and still being a part of this, Bruce Campbell being a part of this, all the, having those original creators around to be here. This had a $15 million budget because originally it was supposed to be on HBO Max. And I guess it screened so well that they said, throw it in theaters. Um, you know, and right now it's pushing $100 million. I think it's sitting right below 90 million at this moment. So it's making money, and it's making money based on that small budget. And for the budget that they had and the movie that they ended up making, bravo. And that's what I like to see. The fact that movies like this can do a better job than movies that are, got $100 million or more in a budget means you're doing something right. The horror genre is in good hands because I think Lee Cronin's got a good future ahead of him. I'm very excited to see what he does next. I'm very excited to see what where this franchise goes. I know that they've been talking about maybe possibly doing one every 2 to 3 years, which I don't know if we need that, but the fact that we didn't get one for 10 years is pretty crazy. It's insane. It literally feels like the remake came out like 5 years ago, but it's been 10. So wild stuff. Well, if you guys had any thoughts you want to let me know about, if you disagreed with me, if you agree with me, you just want to leave a comment down below, please like, comment, and subscribe to the YouTube channel if you're watching. If you're listening, please rate and review us on whatever podcast app you're listening to us on. Make sure to rate us 5 stars over on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to us. And also make sure to check out our newest podcast episode, which will be out this Friday, where we are going to be sitting down with our good friend Dustin from the Flicks and Friends podcast to talk about the 1998 and the 2020 Mulan. But until next time, I want to thank everybody for joining me on another episode of Fresh Cuts, and I'll see y'all again soon. Bye, everybody.